We're going to dive into a historical problem, right? Nico, you've read The Creature from Jekyll Island. I've read The Creature from Jekyll Island. We understand.
Great recommendation, by the way. Thank you for that. Because it was Phil that recommended me that book, and it's phenomenal.
Dude, you know what? It's required. I think it's required reading for all Bitcoiners. We all should read it. And if you haven't, check it out. Anyways, on the heels of Jekyll Island, right? I just want to give some background, right? Because the IMF is made up of the same groups and the same people, the same totes that the Federal Reserve is made up of. So let's dive into some background information here for a second before we dive into this electronic money. 100 years later, the Federal Reserve has failed, and I want you guys to keep in mind, this is December 20th, 2013, this article is from, and it's on Forbes, okay? So just keep that in mind, the source that it's coming from. It's very interesting that this was on Forbes. I guess this is before they were worried about people actually pulling the strings together. Anyways, 100 years later, the Federal Reserve has failed at everything it's tried. On December 23rd, 1913, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Owen Glass Act, creating the Federal Reserve. Under the Fed's supervision, boom and bust cycles have continued. 3 of them have been severe: the Great Depression, the stagflationary period of 74 to 82, and the current Great Recession, which they're referring to the 2008 crisis. Bank failures have occurred in alarmingly high numbers. Depending on what measurements are used, the dollar has lost between 95 and 98% of its purchasing power. Keep that in mind. That's part of the signal. The 1970 amendments to the Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the Fed should promote effectively the goals of maximum employment, stable prices, and moderate long-term interest rates. Keep those 3 things in mind. First, the premise that the central bank can fix unemployment is erroneous. It's based on the Phillips curve, the discredited academic theory positing a trade-off between inflation and employment. Unemployment is fundamentally a price problem, not a monetary problem. Therefore, the cure for unemployment is a free market in wages and not particular monetary policy. Second, central bank tampering with interest rates is the fundamental cause of, not the cure for, the boom and bust cycles. Thus, the Fed should cease from tampering with interest rates. Remember, this is on Forbes, 2013. Finally, focusing on stable prices is looking at the problem backwards. The Fed shouldn't try to influence prices any more than a nurse should influence the reading of a thermometer. The fever that causes prices to rise and purchasing power to fall is sick money. Heal the money. Okay, now let's take a look at this psychotic, ass-backwards clown show that is the electronic money standard and the possibility of zero inflation target. Keep in mind, I just read to you how over 100 years these bodies have completely failed in this task, in doing the simple thing of administering the monetary policy because of human greed and the power desire. So let's dive into this. A world with lower inflation and zero inflation and no persistent recessions may sound like a pipe dream, but we argue that it's possible by transitioning to an electronic money standard. Such a transition requires eliminating the zero lower bound. That's right, which central banks can achieve using readily available tools. Now look, the framing that I have for this article is that they're selling us this. They're essentially, the IMF is selling us a product. The same way that the Federal Reserve sold a very small group of very powerful people on the idea of the Federal Reserve, the same way that the IMF is now trying to sell everyone on this idea of this electronic money standard. Anyways, this will empower central banks to quickly restore full employment and over the medium term possibly move toward targeting full price stability with zero inflation. Guys, literally in that sentence, the 3 things the Federal Reserve could not do for 100 years, okay? The IMF is going to fix. Couldn't do it before with the same stupid monetary policies, but we're going to do it now because it's electronic. A variety of factors, including an aging population that has raised the saving rate, have led to a decline in productivity and greater demand for safe assets, and the neutral real rate of interest has trended downward worldwide. That's right. We're blaming old people. We're blaming savers.
Dude,
okay?
You know how fucking maniacal that is, dude.
These people worked for their money, and now you're blaming them. Hey, thanks for those like 70 years
for saving too much to watch out for your family because we printed too much. You are now the enemy of the IMF, which explains, and we'll get to this in the news segment, why they are so against Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a central planner's worst fucking nightmare. And these people, like I pointed out a couple days ago, the head of the IMF, Georgina something, literally graduated from the Karl Marx Institute in economics. I don't know how Karl Marx and economics could literally be in the same goddamn sentence. It contradicts itself. Anyways, I'll shut up.
No, not at all. Not at all. Hey, listen, we covered this. I wanted to add this at the beginning. We covered this in the news segment in a specific framing. We're covering it now in the fail in this different framing where we're diving into why this is a total disaster waiting to happen. Anyways, okay, let's keep moving on about how they're going to make us poorer under the guise of everyone is free and equal. Breaking the zero lower bound requires eliminating the arbitrage opportunity between cash that guarantees a zero nominal interest rate and money in the bank that would earn negative interest rates if policy rates were cut into negative territory. That's right. They're going to try to convince us to steal from ourselves. This is fantastic. This is psychotic and fantastic. And this, ladies and gentlemen, are the people that run our monetary policy and our system.
This is not psychotic, Phil. Remember that Bitcoiners are now the psychos. We're the psychos. They're okay. They're the smart ones. They're our betters. They know what's best.
True. And then here we go. We're going to evidence this. We're going to further evidence how they know best. A zero lower bound can be broken through a combination of 1, adopting or strengthening an electronic money standard in which electronic money is the unit of account, and 2, implementing a time-varying interest rate, or more generally rate of return on paper currency, cash. So they want to figure out a way to steal from your cash. They want to make it less valuable constantly as well. They want to make sure that the cash that you have is subject to this negative interest rate constantly. An essential element of an electronic money standard is that it does not require the elimination of paper currency to enable deep negative rates. It is enough to modify paper currency policy. An arbitrage between cash and electronic money is at the expense of the central bank's balance sheet. All due respect, fuck you. Fuck you, central bank. Because why do we need to have our value that we can't get back stolen, and the central bank can just simply, at the wave of a wand, print money ad nauseum and make us all poor ad nauseum? This is psychotic crap. No one needs to get poorer in order to have social services. No one needs this poverty. Anyways.
Dude, it's not about that. It's the fact
I know,
that
but it's what happens.
They're central planners. They think they know what's best. Dude, the system where we are today, right, with the record amount of wealth inequality, right? The fact that my generation, Adrian and I were talking about this off screen before, we can't afford, he took the good route and he got the fuck out, but the average millennial in the United States, right, they can't afford to buy a house right now.
No, they
this
can't.
is the result of all of their fucking policies, and they still don't understand that they are the fucking problem. Anyways.
Who got rich, right? Who got rich?
Yeah.
It's not the future generations. You know how we always talk about how the future generations should be better, right? They should be better off than us. Like, why the hell are we worse off than our parents somehow?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but it's all good because guess what, man? We've got great phones. Got awesome phones, dude. We're set.
Remember, it's 2030. You own nothing. Be happy, bro. They say it themselves, man.
I know. Okay, so here we go. Let's keep diving into this shit show because believe it or not, it does get worse. Eliminating cash would also be highly controversial among the public. The key issue is that the existence of cash limits government power somewhat. Rogoff and Rogoff argue that it is good to increase government's power to suppress cash-intensive activities that are illegal, such as trade in deadly drugs and tax evasion. So again, we are going back to the same bullshit narratives, okay? We are doing this for your safety. Your value needs to be controlled by us for your safety. It's for your good. Countries were able to revive their economies by going off the gold standard. Moving from a paper standard to an electronic money standard can empower monetary policy to cut interest rates as much as needed for economic stimulus during recessions, while enabling a gradual shift to zero inflation target. That's right. This is the bullshit that they just made up about the gold standard. Let's take a look at the purchasing power of the dollar. Was it really the best thing to do to get off that gold standard? What was that really?
It was for them. For them.
It was for them. It was for a very small group of people to maintain power. But for the average person, we all got screwed. All of our time became worth infinitely less. Literally, anyways. All right, here we go. So here are the benefits of this bullshit. All right, here we go. Benefit number 1, true price stability with restored firepower to end recessions, right? Just like we saw in that other article from the 100 years of the Fed Reserve reign. They were also supposed to stop recessions and boom and bust cycles. We just went through one in 2008. Bitcoin was born. Next, once the transition to the electronic standard eliminates the zero lower bound, a central bank can enable deep negative rates, if and when needed, thus maintaining monetary policy's power to end recessions quickly. We have no freaking clue that this is going to work.
So you know what that means, right?
Oh, do I ever?
So essentially a negative interest rate. So think about it this way, right? The bank, you have to pay the bank for them to hold your money so they could make money off the money that you have with them at the bank. Think about that for a sec. And the reason that they do these, the central planners think that they can incentivize people to spend, right, by having these negative interest rates, but it's pesky cash, because cash is the last thing that doesn't allow them to do this effectively. Do you know how crazy this is? Don't save for a better future because you have to spend, because we know what's best for you and your family.
All right, here we go. Benefit number 2, avoid episodes of high inflation by enabling vigorous use of interest rates in either direction. So what do you think about this? We are currently going through the highest inflation in 40 years. They couldn't do it with any of the tools now. Do you honestly think that by making the cash electronic, we're simply going to avoid this? This is psychotic dream nonsense. It makes no sense. Okay, benefit number 3, minimize. This is actually one of my favorites. It's really interesting. Minimized nominal illusion. Money illusion is a cognitive bias that causes people to think of money in terms of its face value instead of its real purchasing power. Money illusion distorts behavior in many areas of daily life. No, we're not having an illusion that our purchasing power is going down. No one is having an illusion about this. So somehow they introduced this weird confusion into this article that makes zero freaking sense whatsoever. Benefit number 4, a simple price level targeting approach. That sounds like some weird price fixing shit to me anyways. A key advantage of a zero inflation target is that it can make price level targeting easy to explain. Price level targeting refers to central bank targeting of the level of prices instead of the rate of inflation. Does that sound like price fixing to you? I don't know what that is. Adrian? Well, thoughts?
This is one step before communism, bro. That's my fucking
This is like, I mean, this just sounds ridiculous. All right, we're gonna continue on here. Here we go. Since the global financial crisis, central banks have become concerned about the effect of lower rates on financial stability. Once zero lower bounds are broken, central banks can use vigorous interest rate cuts to shorten recessions enough that downwardly sticky nominal wages will present less of a problem.
These people have had a shot. Okay, Phil, finish up.
Yeah, I'll finish up, and yeah. A transition to an electronic money standard holds the dual promise of providing monetary policy firepower to restore full employment quickly while targeting full price stability with zero inflation. 100 years later, the Federal Reserve has failed at everything it's tried.